back to another recording in progress. Hi everyone, welcome back to another live community classroom with Michaels. Today we have Marley Bird with us for another exciting class. Today we're going to be crocheting the very best hanging basket, which is a perfect place for you to put all your keys and all those little small items that need a home. My name is Renee L. I'm from Yarnspiration, so I'll be here helping out with any questions you might have. So please feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll make sure that Marley answers them. While we're getting started, please feel free to let us know where you're watching from. Back to you, Marley.
All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back here to a Michael's Community Classroom. As two people now have said, my name is Marley Bird. I am an ambassador with Yarnspirations. I also have my own website called itsmarleybird.com, and I host the Marley Bird YouTube channel. So essentially, if you look up Marley Bird online, you'll find me. I'm pretty much everywhere. The very best crochet hanging basket has there been a cuter name? I mean, it's so adorable. I absolutely want to make one of these and maybe put it next to my crochet chair and put my scraps in there, my tails and stuff. That might be something fun to put in there, just to kind of keep it all together, right? Crochet, knitting, all the things. I think it'd be fun. The link for this pattern is in the chat room, I do believe. If Renee hasn't put it there yet, she will put it over there. I think you can get it through Michael's. It's also available at yarnspirations.com if you should have any trouble. The very best crochet hanging basket. Today, we are going to use Lily Sugar and Cream. And obviously, this basket is supposed to look like a strawberry, so you can use red, green, and yellow as suggested, or you can be like me and use pink because I love pink and I thought it would be cute with pink. So I have red and pink and green. We're also going to use a size H or a 5mm crochet hook. Just a heads up here. This is just a basic Susan Bates hook. I just happen to have a handle on it because it helps me not get hand cramps as I'm crocheting. Last but not least, I'm going to mention that you should have a stitch marker and a tapestry needle to weave in those tails as you go along, and also to create the seed looking stitches on the outside of the strawberry. Okay. This class is considered like a beginner intermediate class. If you know how to chain and single crochet, I can get you through everything you need to know for the rest of the way. So if you're ready to go, let's go ahead and jump in. Don't forget to have that chat live. So that way, if you have questions, you can ask them over there and Renee will jump in and get my attention if I need to have it grabbed. All right, Nate, let's go. Here we go. Down to business, everybody. Hopefully you can see my hands just fine. Obviously, I'm going to start off with the pink yarn here. And I mean, obviously, I like pink a lot, and my size H crochet hook. One thing you do want to notice about the instructions is that we are going to be working in a spiral, a continuous spiral for the basket itself. So we're never going to join to work in the round in the quintessential join with a slip stitch. We're going to just start working on top of the stitches we already create. So go ahead and place that slip knot directly onto your hook. And we're going to get started with chaining 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. In the second chain from your hook, we're going to place 6 single crochets. So simply go into the second chain from your hook and do 6 single crochets. So there's 1. I'm going to put my marker there. So I'm going to grab my marker in the V behind the loop on my hook. I am going to place my marker right there. And this marker is going to identify the start of our round every round. Okay, so we will eventually put that marker in a different position, or I should say we will move it up along the way. But right now I'm just placing 6 single crochets all into that 1 stitch. Okay. And if you're like me and you tend to talk as you're single crocheting and you lose count, you can always go back to where you put that marker in and then find the V's on top of the stitches you just created and count them. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so I have 6 single crochets all into there. And you'll notice that the second round, it says 2 single crochets into each single crochet around. Now, the confusing thing here is if you are not familiar with patterns like this, you might be like, well, does that mean I'm supposed to turn and start working back on top of those? Like, because it never uses the exact words join, right? It never says join. Typically, a lot of patterns, if they are joined where you aren't working in a spiral, you would join with a slip stitch to your first stitch. So that way you would create this to be the round. But because this project is just done in a large spiral, instead of an actual quote unquote slip stitch join right here, we're simply going to start with 2 single crochets into that stitch right there that we have marked. Now, I find it difficult to work into it with the marker in, so I'm going to take my marker out for the first one. Hopefully you guys can see this just fine. And I will do 1 single crochet. Now, as I complete that, I'm going to place my marker back in to the V behind the loop on my hook. And so that's going to tell me that when I get back to where that is, that's the first stitch of my round, because that was the first one I just completed, right? Remember, we're going to put 2 into each one around. So there is my second one into that stitch. So now I come to the next one, and I'm going through both loops. I don't know if you guys notice, I'm not just going through the back or just the front. I'm going through both. Do you have to go through both? No, you could absolutely make yours a little bit more three-dimensional like and do it through just the back loop if you wanted to. It would give you a completely different look, but the designer did intend for the stitches to go through both loops. And I am basing that on the fact that it doesn't tell me otherwise. And looking at the picture, it looks like everything is through both loops, not just the back loop. When I get to the end of this round, if I'm a little bit confused if I've done enough stitches or not, I can go back and recount once again. So I actually tend to do that for the first couple rounds just to make sure I've done everything correctly. So I'm going to go back and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12th one is my marked one. That's perfect. I've done my 12. I put 2 into each stitch, and I didn't accidentally miss one or triple up my single crochets. Okay, now that we're back to the start, once again, we're going to remove this stitch marker. And once we put our first stitch right there, we're going to put our stitch marker back in. And as we're increasing here, we're going to increase, I don't know if exponentially is the correct word to use, but each round, so this round here, we did an increase in each stitch. The following round, we're going to do an increase in the first one and then do 1 stitch in the next. Increase in the next, 1 stitch in the next, okay? And then the following one, it'll be an increase, and then it'll see a single in the next 2. Then an increase and a single in the next 2. And then the following one, there'll be an increase and a single in the next 3, so on and so forth. And you would keep doing that, increasing in that manner until you get up to 78 single crochets. All right. So let's just work a couple rounds here for our purposes, because I don't think I can get 78 single crochets done in the time frame we have. I'm fast, but I'm not that fast. So I do my first one, and again, I put my marker there. I'm going to let you guys know, there have been times I had, I think, a little bit too much confidence, and I was like, I don't need a marker. I'll know where the start of my round is. And can I just tell you that I would always end up having to rip out my project, because for whatever reason, I can never identify the start of the round when I'm working in spirals like this. It somewhat eludes me. So I always use a marker. And if you watch my YouTube channel at all, you'll notice that I use markers quite a bit in crochet, because it really helps me identify the edges, the last stitch, or maybe it's a special stitch I need to do. It's a tool that I find very useful. So I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm pretty sure I'm doing this appropriately, where I'm doing 2, and then I do 1 in the next one. Then I do 2, and I'll do 1 in the next one. And that puts me right up here to my marker, which is, so on this round, I typically would not count because I ended right where I needed to end, right? If I started with 2 and I did 2 and then 1, 2 and then 1, as I come around, I should end with a 1, right? And I did. So for me, I would not go back and count. If you want to check yourself, you can go ahead and go back and count. But once again, we're going to do another round. And this one, we're going to increase, but we're going to have 2 stitches in between each increase. I do my first one, move my marker, do the second one in that same stitch, don't forget. Oops. And then this time I'll do a single into that one and a single into that one. Now, something you guys might be noticing is every time I'm working my stitches, I move my hand and fingers up to essentially grasp the stitch as I'm working it. It's because we're working with a 100% cotton yarn here. And if you've noticed, it's a real stiff yarn. And so if I don't come up here and essentially grasp these loops underneath my hook, they tend to stretch out on me and they fight with me to actually get made. But if I grasp them and as I'm holding these, I'm pulling down, and with my hook, I'm kind of pulling up a little bit. You see how it opens up that hole for me just a little bit? So my stitches are still the size of my hook, which is what I want them to be. But by pulling, like I'm pulling this one that direction, and this one this direction, it opens up that bottom, like the teardrop of the hole, and I'm allowed to take my hook and essentially swivel it and easily get it through those stitches without them getting too big or too sloppy. So it's a great way to be able to control the size of your stitches as you're making something. I tend to do that quite a bit. I think it's one of the better ways to make sure that you maintain gauge on something is to control the size of your stitches from this point all the way to the end. So you'll often notice I grasp the post of my crochet as I'm making it because it helps the stitches stay where they need to be. All right, so you'll see I'm often looking back like this and kind of pulling my stitches apart to see. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for where I did my double stitches and not double crochets, but where I put 2 single crochets into one, because then I can find where I did the 2 into one and then count from there to see where I am. So I just wasn't sure if I needed another single right here or another double. So I can see back here, I have 2 singles into one, and then there's 1 single, 1 single. So now I know I need 2 singles into one. Hopefully that helps you guys if you're trying to work along and read your crochet at the same time. That is what I'm doing as I go here. Pretty easy stuff, right? Here's a little side note. This is very similar to the way you can start at the top of a crochet hat, you guys. So you could start making this, and instead of, I mean, you could just veer off pattern completely, make it as like the same circumference as like a head of a baby or whatnot. And that one should have 2. And you could make yourself a baby hat with make it look like a strawberry baby hat. Just don't do the decreases to make it tight. Just a little side note. That's why I'm a designer. I never follow patterns 100%. I'm always veering off. All right. So that is the end of round 4, correct? Is that 3? 1 single crochet. Round 4 was supposed to just be single crochets. All right, we're going to ignore this. So round 3 was, we did that correctly, where it was 2 and then 1, 2 and then 1. I skipped round 4 and went straight to round 5, where I did a single crochet into every 2. There should have been a round of just plain single crochets in there. Sorry, it's not going to be the end of the world. Honestly, guys, I'm not going to undo it. We're just going to throw it in there right now. So I'm going to pretend I skipped round 4 and we're jumping to round 5, which would be just a round of basic single crochets. So we didn't increase every round, every other round. Does that make sense? Renee, are there any questions? Did anybody try and stop me? Anybody else catch it?
Yeah, somebody did catch about the row 4 or 5. So thank you so much for answering that. I know sometimes patterns are a good, base to work off of, and we can improv a little bit.
Right.
So we're improving.
This is what happens. I'm talking, I'm crocheting, I'm teaching, I glance up. I wasn't even looking at like the rounds. I was like, okay, where's the next set of instructions? Oh, there they are. Like my eyes totally skipped over round 4, completely skipped over it. So right now and it says round 4 and alternate rounds. So essentially, guys, all of your even rounds are just a single crochet around. And I just didn't do that on the last one. But hey, what we were just doing right there, where it was increase every round, you could do that for a hat. Just so you know, all this is going to do is delay the, or not delay, it's going to extend our increase. So it's not going to increase round like this completely. It's going to increase and kind of come up. It's going to make it a little bit more cone-like, which is what we want for a little basket. My apologies, guys. I looked up at the pattern and I didn't even see it. Like I didn't even see 4. I just looked for instructions.
We're just having too much fun.
Is that
That's it.
it?
Yeah.
That's all right. See, even the professionals make mistakes, guys. All right, so that would have been, we're gonna call that round 6. All right. We're gonna put our pretend hats on. That's round 6. So we're starting round 7, and that's where we would increase yet again. You guys get the hang of this, right? So I'm gonna do round 7. And as I'm doing that, Renee, I'm going to ask you, are there any other questions? What are people thinking? And if you guys don't have any, like I'm not looking at the chat, you guys, but if you don't have any questions, if you have a question now, or maybe, what colors do you want to make yours in if you're making one of these baskets?
So far, so good. Christy did ask if it should exclusively be in a cotton yarn. I said any yarn with a similar gauge should work, but do you have any recommendations for this pattern?
Nope, I absolutely agree with you. I think you could absolutely get by with like a Red Heart Super Saver, or anything that you can get a similar gauge. Or you know what, honestly, at the end of the day, guys, does it really matter if the basket's a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller? Like if you wanted to make one that was a little bit bigger, and just use a little bit bigger yarn instead of changing the stitch counts, I mean, absolutely, it would not be the end of the world, I don't think, just to have a basket that's a little bit bigger. I think it'd be really cute. What would be really cute, I think, Renee, is if you maybe used a yarn that maybe was a little bit fuzzy, so you kind of get a fuzzy strawberry. I mean, that sounds funny. Maybe you don't want to eat a fuzzy strawberry, but getting a little fuzzy strawberry might be something fun. Or even maybe just the seeds, maybe do something where it's like a fuzzy, not like an eyelash type, but maybe something just like a little fuzz to it. As I'm talking, I'm losing my track. So I did 2 there, 1, 2, 3. There's 2 there. See, I put 2 into that one. All right, so there's 1, 2,
Absolutely.
3.
If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to hop into the chat.
Yeah. Or, I mean, what are some ideas that you could use this for? Like, you can see in the image, it looks like they have some like utensils in it or something, but what else could you use this for? Does anybody have any suggestions? I mean, I thought about instantly, you could put it at the side of like a diaper changing table and maybe keep your like ointments or Q-tips or something, and I don't even know. Maybe extra diapers, maybe extra wipes, because it's just adorable. It's so cute.
Absolutely. Very versatile as well.
Yeah.
So I have a question from Carol. She's saying, regarding other yarn, do we need to worry about acrylic or stretching?
So the cotton is going to stretch itself as well. So I wouldn't stress about it too much. I think, hold on a second. 1, 2, 3. I think you'd be just fine. The acrylic isn't going to stretch nearly as much as like a cotton would, especially if you were to get the cotton wet or whatever. I think you'd be okay. And you know what, if you're worried about the stretch of the yarn, because you plan on putting like maybe some bigger items in it, you could always crochet it with a smaller hook and make it just a real nice dense fabric, and that usually helps with the stretch also. All right, so you can see here, I just finished round 7, and see how it's no longer like a flat circle. It's starting to sort of cup up on itself. So it's the bottom of the strawberry starting to cup up. Okay, so once again, we're going to put our imagination hats on, right? Because you keep repeating, increasing every 6 single crochets, or increasing 6 single crochets every other round until you get up to 78 stitches. And then you would just single crochet every round from rounds 24 to 31. So we're going to pretend that we've hit our 78, and we're just going to single crochet a couple rounds, so that way I can show you how the decreases would go. All right. So when you get to the point where you have 78, you would simply go ahead and just single crochet around. Okay. So make sure you have your marker. And it doesn't have to be 78, you guys. I mean, what do you think? Do you think it has to be 78? I'm curious what everybody thinks. What do we think? What do we think? I can't see the chat, so you're gonna have to tell me. Everybody's just crocheting away.
Yeah, everyone's just having a good time. Nothing yet, but I do have a question from Christy. Do you first round an elastic band and make a bag holder?
You
Oh
could.
yeah, you could.
Yeah, you absolutely could. Instead of starting the round down here with the two, you could single crochet around a plastic band, and maybe instead of starting with 6, maybe you start out here where you have the 12 stitches or whatever. Maybe you do it a little bit bigger. You absolutely could do that. You could do that. I think my biggest thing with working around plastic rubber bands or anything like that didn't make sense, right? Plastic bands, is I'm always afraid they're going to break. And then, how do you fix it
Mhm.
after that? But so I will answer my question. If you don't get 78 single crochets, like maybe it's as big as you want it to be when you hit, I mean, whatever number it is, I don't even care. Let's say it was 50. I mean, I don't even know if maybe it was 60. How about that? I don't know. If it's as big as you want it to be, you can stop there and just create your rounds of single crochet where you want to. And then you can start doing your decreases. Now you might have to change up your decrease rate. Like maybe it won't work out mathematically to decrease with a single crochet 2 together and then single crochet 6 single crochets and then decrease again. You just have to figure out mathematically how it would work to decrease the stitches down. It's just a couple rounds for decreases just to give it that sort of bowl shape that kind of comes back in. But you can absolutely do that. I mean, that's the beauty of working on things like this that don't have to fit. So to speak, you can really tweak it and make it work for you. So going back to that question, I think you said it was Christy who asked about the yarn and stretching and stuff. If you're using a yarn that you really feel like it's going to stretch a little bit more, you did maybe do the stitches a little bit tighter, but you still feel like maybe at 60 stitches, it's big enough. You could stop there and just kind of tweak the item for yourself for sure.
Mhm.
Yep.
Perfect.
All of that makes sense. All right, I'm just going to keep single crocheting around here, just a couple rounds, because I want you to be able to see how the decreases go. And then we got to talk about the leaf, because the leaf is made interesting and it might be something unfamiliar to you, which is cool. It's nice to see a lot of familiar names in here. Not many of you are showing your faces today, but I see a lot of familiar names. It's nice to see all of you. It's really great. Does this make you want to pick up your hook, Renee?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just make more containers for my supplies.
Yeah,
Just
you can't
more
go
things to
wrong.
hold hooks.
Can't go wrong at all. It's definitely cute.
Yeah, these are the perfect functional projects, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll hop into the chat. So everyone, what else would you guys put in a container like this? What would you use it to store? So we have paintbrushes. I'm thinking for me, probably crochet hooks.
That's a good idea.
I think probably my keys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. I wonder if maybe if you made it and then maybe you do some sort of like a macrame knotting sort of hanging bit to it and you could put a plant inside and let the hanger bit, hold the weight of it, but it would look like a strawberry. I don't know. I'm just trying to think a little bit outside of what I normally would think of. My instant thought when I first saw it was that, oh, I could totally use that for scraps. Like just, sitting next to me. So it's not like an ugly trash can. It's just this cute little thing. It just collects all of my scrap tails and stuff when I'm weaving in my ends. I thought that was pretty good. All right. So let me just
Absolutely.
one more round here. So that way we have something to work with. And then we're going to do a decrease round. And I'm going to count how many stitches I have this round because I don't even know.
Great. So I'm just going to hop into the chat. Some people shared where they were watching from. So if everyone wants to weigh in and say hello. We have Tina from Austin. We have Leah from Cedar Rapids. We've got people from Virginia Beach, Oklahoma, Nevada. How is the weather where you guys are? How's your day? How are things?
That's the beauty of these classrooms is that
Mhm.
we can bring people together from all around the world, all different time zones and all the different things. It's pretty
Absolutely.
awesome. It's pretty great.
Oh, hi, Gloria from Ohio.
Hey, that's a neighbor. I'm in Indiana, so it's definitely a neighbor to me.
Nate, we're
All right.
really sorry about the drizzly weather in Minneapolis. Our sympathies.
What are you gonna do? You can't. You can only do what you can do.
All right, so I lost count because I was talking again, so I'm gonna go
Oh
back
gosh,
and
I'm
count.
sorry.
No, you're good. So I have 30. Okay. So that's going to be important because maybe you are like me and you're like, oh, I just want to make a little small one. I've got to figure out how many I have to do for my decreases. So looking at the pattern for the decrease section, it says it wants me to do a single crochet 2 together and then do a 1 single crochet in each of the next 11. So it's having me get rid of 6 stitches. So if I were to take my pattern here, and instead of getting rid of 6 stitches, I'm going to do it so like how do I want to do this? I have 30 stitches. Let's just do, let's did I do that? Do you guys know? Did I single crochet in the first one? I don't think I did. So I'm going to single crochet 2 together here in the first one. This is what you would do. So it says for you to single crochet 2 together. So you go into the stitch, do that again, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. So you have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and draw through all 3 loops on your hook. And then right there, that V behind the loop on your hook, that's where you're going to put your stitch marker. So that ate up 2 stitches for me. I'm going to single crochet in the next 3. So that would be 3, 4, and 5. So I'm working in like a 5-stitch increments, right? And then I'm going to do it again. So I'll single crochet 2 together, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3 loops. Okay. If you're following the instructions, you would go ahead and single crochet in the next 11 stitches if you were following along and you originally had 78. If not, if you're changing up your increments or whatever, you could do exactly what I'm doing and just decrease down. You can get the stitches decrease down in so that way you can get rid of 6 stitches at a time. That would be good. Hopefully this makes sense about a single crochet 2 together. So you get the 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, draw through all 3.
So we have a message from Leah. She's saying she's having trouble with row 7, 2 second crochet and next second crochet, 1 second crochet in each of the next 3. She's not
Okay.
ending with 3, only 2. What is she doing wrong?
So somewhere along the way, she missed a stitch. So if I'm being honest, this little thing is just really small. I would just put 2 in your last one and go back and count everything again to make sure that you have the 30 single crochets once that's done. And then just, at that point, just maintain it. The other thing I would do is I would go back where you have your marker and I would just, like for me, even on this one, so I come back to where my marker is, I could say, okay, there's my single crochet 2 together. And then there's 1 single, 2 single, 3 singles. There's my 3 singles. And then I could see there's my single crochet 2 together, 1 single, 2 single, 3 single. So for her, she can go, okay, here are my 2 single crochets into 1. Here's 1 single, 2 single, 3 single. Here's my 2 single crochets into 1, 1 single, 2 single, 3 single. Does that make sense? So go back and count. So essentially somewhere along the way, you've lost a stitch, and it's for something like this, I would just budget and throw one in there and then just be very aware that you don't lose it again in the future. Hopefully that helps.
Wonderful, thank you.
No problem. I'm on a decrease right here. It's all about reading your crochet. And I say the same thing about reading your knitting. if you can go back and read what you've done, you can answer most of the questions. And guys, I mean, I make mistakes like that all the time. I will, get too confident and just like be going on my merry little way and then just make some sort of a little mistake. And I always have to rip out and fix and do all those things. All right. I'm almost to the end here. So this is be 1, 2, 3. So just like when we were doing our increases with the decrease round, we're supposed to do our second round is just even single crochets around. So I'm going to do that on here. So I'll move this first one. I'll do a round of single crochets.
Marley, do you have any tips for working with cotton?
So that's a good question. I don't work with cotton a lot because it's a obviously you guys know it's a plant fiber. It's a very stiff fiber, so it's really hard on my hands. So the number one thing I do is usually use a hook with a bigger handle because it takes the stress off of my hand trying to hold a smaller hook and pulling the stitches through. I also, like I said, I try and really control the size of my stitches as they're getting created so they don't get too big, because it's very easy to let these stitches get really big and not uniform anymore if you don't control the size of your stitches very well. But overall, I mean, it's just like any other fiber. You can make pretty much anything with it. It does stretch over time because it is a cotton fiber, just like your cotton t-shirts and stuff will stretch. So you got to be aware of that as you're making items with it, but it's pretty easy stuff. All right, so on my third round, once again, it's asking me to decrease, and then you would do just like we would increase down here every other round. We would increase 6 stitches. Up here, it was decreased down 6 stitches every other round until you get down to 48. So on this next round, I could decrease once again. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in and do that. We're doing great on time. So I will decrease on this round. So you start off with our single crochet 2 together. Put my marker into that first one. And this time I will have 2 single crochets past that one. So there's 1 and 2. Oops. Right there. So obviously this is going to go faster because we're going to have fewer stitches to work with, which is great. And then 1 and 2. This will be my last round of decreases for my little tiny sample right here. And we'll finish off everything. Make ourselves a little strawberry. I like the pink strawberry, not gonna lie. Reminds me of like strawberry shortcake. Who can I just, I mean, I'm showing my age here. How many of you had strawberry shortcake? And when I say that, like the strawberry shortcake dolls, can you automatically like recollect the smell of the strawberry shortcake dolls? Like when I think of strawberry shortcake, my mind automatically goes back to the way those dolls smelled. Like they smelled so good as a kid. Strawberry shortcake was amazing. I loved it. All right, so I'm at the end of my round here. So this would be as if you guys completed your decrease rounds all the way down until you got to 48. It wants me to do one more round of just single crochets and then fasten off. So I will go ahead and do that. I do want to mark my first stitch so that way I know where the end of my round is. All right. And we're going to get all the way around with this. Now, because we're working in a spiral, at the end of our round, the last stitch of our round is going to be like, look like it's a little higher than our first stitch. So usually at that point, I will play around and I will work a series of stitches that are a little bit smaller than whatever stitch I'm working on. So for example, if it was a double crochet, I would then drop down and do a half double and then do a single after that and then do a slip stitch after that. We're doing single crochets. So usually what I'll do is I will kind of slip stitch along the way a little bit towards the end instead of doing a full single. So I'm going to show you what I mean here. So I'm going to put a single right here. And then can you see how this one's taller than that one? So I only have 2 more stitches left here. So what I would probably do, if this were mine, I would do a slip stitch and then do a slip stitch again. And what that does is it tapers off my round. So it brings this stitch here. It's more in line with the start of my round. Can you guys see that? You don't have to do that. It's not written in the pattern, but I mean, that's usually what I'll do. Sometimes I'll even single crochet all the way up to the end and then do my slip stitches on this side. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to do it at all if you don't want to. It's no big deal. Totally up to you. Cut my yarn. I always leave a nice long tail that I can then weave in later. And I like to thread it through. Give myself a little knot. Take this marker out now. And in here, you can see how that just kind of really finishes it off a little bit closer. And even with this tail, I can go in and just thread it through that last one if I want to. But I have myself a little tiny strawberry here. You guys see that? Yeah. I don't know about you guys. Like for me, I probably would go around the top with the green or something, or maybe even slip stitch at the top. We can play around with that in a minute. But I am going to go ahead and weave in my tail right now because it drives me nuts. Those of you who have taken my classes know this. I always leave a nice long tail and I use a bent tip tapestry needle to weave in my tail. And because this is cotton and because this is something I'm not going to wear or anything, I'm not stressed too much about the way my end is going to be woven in too much because it's not going to be really in the way. So what I mean by that is when I come to the inside, I'm going to turn this inside out. I'm just going to start threading it down some of the stitches and get myself, bring it down, drop down, and I'm going to come up a couple of the stitches. And I'm not going to worry too much about it getting pulled out because I think it's going to be just fine. Hey, right now it's back to school time. All of these scissors tend to go on sale at the stores. Go and buy yourself a whole bunch, like 10, you guys. Put them in every single knitting or crochet bag you have, and you'll thank me later on. Just giving you a heads up. Okay, so you can weave in this tail down here as well. If you want to close up this hole at the bottom a little bit, you can always just kind of essentially sort of whip stitch this bottom together to make sure it's kind of closed. Really, it's more than a whip stitch. I'm just kind of pulling it all together without making a hole somewhere else, right? Like that's the crux of it all. Just kind of pull this in. And then it's at this point you can go and you can do all of your straight stitch embroidery on this if you want to. I'm not going to worry about that right yet. Pull this out. All right, so we have a little tiny strawberry or even an air plant cozy, right? This little thing that I made. Okay, after you do that, you get to make 2 leaves, and the leaves are made, they're fairly easy actually, you guys. So we're going to start off with your green yarn and go ahead and get that slip knot on your needle, on your hook. All right. And then we're going to chain 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, our goal here is going to be to essentially create 1/2 of the leaf over here, and then we will work some stitches down here to kind of go around the bottom of our chain, and then we'll work the other half of the leaf on this side. So as we're going along, we will put a single crochet in the second chain from hook. You can go ahead and take your marker and mark where your first, like the top of your stitch is if you want to be consistent with that. And then we're going to do a half double crochet into the next chain and a half double crochet into the next chain. Then you have a double in the next 5 chains. So we're going to do a double. So there's, oops, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're using the height of our stitches to our advantage. That way we can get the shape we want. It's pretty smart. So we have 2 half doubles here. And then in this last chain, we're going to do 3 single crochets. And those 3 single crochets are going to essentially help us turn around the edge of this chain here. So there was 1. There's 2. And you'll see I'm automatically kind of turning it. And there's my 3rd. So I've cupped around the chain. Now I'm going to work my way back, and I'm going to work into each one of these chains on the loop that's free. Okay, does that make sense? So I'm going to come to this first one, and I'll do a half double right here. I'll do a half double into the next. Double into the next 5. If you have any trouble getting into those, you can always use your hook to kind of pull it down so you can get into it a little bit. And then a half double in the next 2. And then this one right here. And then just like we turned with 3 single crochets over here, we already have 1 single crochet here, so we're going to end with 2. So we have 1 and 2. And then on this one, we are going to join with a slip stitch. Okay, so on this one, we aren't working where it's just like a big spiral. We actually do join with a slip stitch. So I go into the top of that first single crochet, yarn over, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through. Okay, you guys see that? All right, so I'm not going to turn my work. I'm still going to keep the right side of my leaf facing me, but I'm going to do 1 more round to get a nice big leaf. Now, if this is as big as you wanted your leaf to be, you guys, you could absolutely just leave it this size. You don't have to go to the next size if you don't want to. But if you do, you simply will chain 1. We will do 2 single crochets into the first single crochet. So in that one where we joined with our slip stitch, we're going to do 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and 2. Just for consistency, I will go ahead and mark the top of that first one I did, just so that you guys can all see it. So there's 2 single crochets. And then we're going to go ahead and do 1 half double in each of the 2 half doubles. So there's 1 and 2. Now we do a double in the next 2. So there's 1 double and another double. And in the next one, we're going to essentially, we're doing a kind of like a, well, we're just going to put 2 double crochets in the next one. It's not a V-stitch, it's 2 double crochets. So there's 1 and 2 into 1 stitch. Now we do a double into the next 2. So there's 1 and 2. Then we do half doubles in the next 2. Oops, that one I didn't get into the stitch. So there's 1 and 2. And then I'm going to put 2 singles into the top of this one. So there's 1 and 2. 2 singles into the top of the next. So there's 1 and 2, and 2 singles in the top of the next. 1 and 2. Just like when we were, increasing to go in the rounds for the bottom of our strawberry, kind of the same principle stands here. We did 1 single, 1 single, 1 single. Now we're on our second round. So it's 2 singles, 2 singles, 2 singles. If we did another round, it would be 2 singles, 1 single, 2 singles, 1 single, 2 singles, 1 single, so on and so forth. So the whole concept of how to turn that corner with those increases, it's very similar to the increases we just did on the bottom of the strawberry. So if you've ever wondered about that, now you know. All right, so I did 2 half doubles. Now I'm going to do 2 more doubles. So there's 1 and 2. I'm going to do 2 doubles into 1 stitch. So there's 1 and 2. And now essentially I'm going down a hill. So I do a double into each of the next 2. And then a half double into the next 2. And then I'm going to finish off again with my singles over here, 2 singles into each of the next 2. So there's 1, 2, and then here's 1 and 2. And you might be like, well, Marley, it looks like you have 1 more stitch there. That was my slip stitch when I was pulling everything over. So I don't have another stitch there. So I would literally just end with my slip stitch. It'll just pull it all together. Just like so. You guys see that? Okay. All right, so I'm not gonna finish off yet because I want to point something out. If you're looking at the pattern, you'll see that it tells you to take the 2 leaves that are like this and stack them on one on top of the other. And then here, I'm gonna read through. It says joining and hanging loop. Join A with a slip stitch through any stitch along the strawberry, chain 10, slip stitch in the same space. And then it tells you to thread these 2 chains into that strawberry and then essentially tie a knot and loop it all together. If you wanted to, I mean, I'm just going to play this by ear here, right? Okay. So if you wanted to, you could just come over here and at this point, join your strawberry, right? And you could, let's just chain some here. It tells you to chain 10. So I think that is 10. And then you can come back, and if you wanted to, you could go right back into this and have it just lay in here like so. You can make things just like really easy so you don't have any more loops than you need to. And then you could start your next leaf right now. Like you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then start your leaf. Where you're going to come into trouble is when you get to the end here and you're supposed to be circling around. I mean, let's just play with it. Why not? We got a little bit of time. Let's just work with it. So we have a single, we have a double, a half double. And you don't have to do it this way, you guys. I'm just trying to think of another way you guys could play around with stuff and make things even a little bit different. If you don't want to do this way, you don't have to at all. You could absolutely just make 2 leaves and then make the chain and do exactly what it said on the pattern. But as I said earlier, I tend to try and make things different because that's just kind of how I roll. And why not? I mean, it's always nice to learn other ways to do things. So I'm down to the last 2 half doubles. One more half double. And this is the part where I said this is where it would get tricky, is because we're supposed to do a single right here, right? A single, and then another single, and then another single. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of turn this. I'm going to go to the bottom of that chain where it's right there and do my single over there. So now my singles are all there, right? They're just all up there. And I can keep going how I need to go. Does that make sense? And this one, I mean, I don't have to make it the same size as the other one if I don't want to. If I want them to be two different sizes, I could do that. I mean, I could do whatever I want. I mean, I can even make this to where it's not perfect, right? So maybe instead of making it to where, you know, it's exactly the same size as the other side, maybe I change it up and I do a half double and I make this so that this leaf is unique in its own way. Let's just make some singles here and just finish up with some singles and make this leaf something different. I mean, not everything's perfect, right? I'm not perfect. Put this in here. You guys like, whoa, she's going rogue. And then we could end right here with a slip stitch. I mean, we'll just end it. Okay, why not? We'll just have some fun. Have some fun with it. And you can see there, like it's all just all attached together. You could thread it through more if you want, but now it's all attached together. And honestly, if this were mine, before I added this, I probably would have done like some slip stitches along the top there, just because it'd be fun. I don't know. But those are the leaves. And look, it's not perfect, right? It's not, this side is not exactly like that one. And it doesn't even look bad. It looks cool. I don't know. That's what I think. But does that answer any questions? Does anybody have any questions? How about that? Everybody's like, what did you just do, Marley? Well,
did we talk about drawstrings at the top at all?
We didn't, but you could do that.
How would we do that, do you think?
Okay, well, okay, obviously I can't take this off unless I undo all of that, so I'm gonna leave it. You know what you could do? You could just simply just chain a bunch. So let me get a slip on here. You could chain a lot and then just like do like thread it through the loops that you have on there, or you could even do like a single crochet, chain one single crochet and work around like that and kind of give yourself bigger loops if you wanted to. 3, 4, let me just, I don't even need to count here. I'm just going to make some chains and let's just talk about what we could do with that. You absolutely could. I mean, why stop at a hanging basket, Renee? We'll just turn this into something else completely. I mean, it kind of looks like a beat right now or something, right? Because it's all pink. I mean, why
Absolutely.
not?
This is the beauty. You can make it your own.
You can, and the pink shows up better on camera than the red. The red kind of it kind of like vibrates on the camera, so the pink shows up better. All right, so I don't even know if I've chained enough for this or not, but essentially you could stop here and just chain. You could go back and just work slip stitches on top of the chain to make it a little more substantial if you want. Or you could even do single crochets if you wanted it, whatever you want to do. Okay, and then what I would do is I would use one of the tails, thread it with my tapestry needle and just decide where you want it to start. Maybe start there and just kind of, I'm just poking it through. I'm not going through like the yarn. I'm going essentially where I would put my hook through if I was just single crocheting or doing a stitch through those stitches. And then you can just pull it through. You see that? I mean, this makes it a little bit more snug. I will not lie. I probably, if I was going to do a drawstring, I probably would do some sort of like a picot or something to finish off the edge so that I'd have a very distinct place that I was gonna, that's where I had that slip stitch. So I have to skip that over. So that I'd have a distinct edge where these would go through, but essentially you would pull the whole thing through like that. And then after you have them both together, obviously you pull them snug and you could pull the whole thing closed. I think that's what I would do. Does that help? Does that answer a question? Anybody?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Nate, what do you think? I mean, I just know you want me to send this to you. You want it right by your little desk waiting.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have some things I could put in there. I think I'd have to. I'd make it work. I'd make it work for sure. It's a good aesthetic.
For a male perspective, what would you put in here? I mean, it's a cute little thing. I really, honestly, the whole idea of putting a little like air plant in it is not a bad idea.
That's really good. My partner loves plants and stuff like that. My instinct was to put it like on the wall or something near my desk and put like pencils and pens in it as like a crafty little holder, and it hangs on the wall, so it's really cute there. That's my instinct.
Yeah, it's real cool. And like the fact that people can understand essentially how the increases work. I mean, you could turn this into just about anything. You can make a blueberry. You could do, you could make baubles instead of like single crochets, like figure out the mathematics to make it a bauble. And you could make like a raspberry or something, you know what I mean? There's a lot of different options you could do. I just took the leaf off. But like, it's just this cute little thing. And it's the perfect, it kind of looks like a hacky sack, like an open hacky sack. But it's real simple, just real simple to do. Kind of fun. Whoa, there it goes. It's fun. All right. Any other questions? Any other questions? You know what else would be fun with this is like if you make it this size, keep decreasing down some and then stuff it full of like catnip. So if you have a cat, you have a little cat toy right here. That'd be fun too. I know, I'm thinking about all the things, but I don't know. All right, so show of hands here in the live. Who of you is that the right? Who's gonna make it? I can't talk all of a sudden. Oh, Vicky's gonna make it. Tina's gonna make it. Kelly's gonna make it. Leslie's gonna make it. Oh, a lot of you are gonna make it. All right, so you got to promise us as you are making these, please share with us on social media. If you want to get my attention, just use hashtag Marley Bird. I'll be sure to find you and smash your like button. But otherwise, we like hashtag Make It with Michaels or hashtag Yarnspo, YARNSPO. Very simple. It's a great way to follow along. It's a great hashtag to follow along if you guys want to get a lot of inspiration from Yarnspirations and other people who are using our yarn and our patterns and such. It's a good hashtag to follow. But we love seeing your work, and especially as you're following along with these Make It with Michaels or Michael's community classroom classes, that we see that you're making the stuff that we're teaching you how to make. It's a lot of fun. So I always have a good time doing this. I hope to see you guys here again really soon. With that, I'm good to go. Renee, it's all you, my friend.
All right. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today for the Community Classroom with Michaels. Don't forget to share your work with hashtag Make It with Michaels and hashtag Yarnspo, as Marley mentioned. Just a reminder, you can find more classes on michaels.com and a recording of today's class at michaels.com/classes. Awesome. And that's everything. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Nate. Bye, Renee.
Bye.